All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. Hello. And welcome to the September 2025 CALPADS Regional Updates meeting. This is the first CALPADS Regionals for the 25-26 school year. The focus of the session today will be CALPADS Fall 1 and Fall 2 updates for the academic year. And we hope the information presented today will support you in your work to provide students the funding for the needed programs and services at your LEAs. My name is Matt Clark. I'm a data governance administrator at CSIS supporting CALPADS, and I will be your host for the September regional updates. And this does mark a slight change in the CALPADS regional meetings in that CSIS, rather than the CDE, will be hosting these sessions moving forward. This change will have a minimal effect on LEAs, but it will affect future registration and the location of future regionals materials, which we will cover in a couple of slides later in the session. The CALPADS office has developed some community agreements, and we have Diana from the CALPADS office here. Diana, would you like to discuss the community agreements?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Wonderful to have you here. My name is Diana Casanova. I'm the administrator of the CALPADS office, and we wanted to, as Matt explained, we've adopted some community agreements that we want to share today to help us frame our meeting as safe and respectful. So let's dive in. The community agreements are keep students at the center of our work and our thinking around CALPADS data. We work together to achieve our goals. This is a collaborative space, and we aim to share knowledge, resources, and best practices. We take the space that we need to share our thoughts and make space for others to share their perspectives. We include and respect all. We listen for understanding when others are speaking, and we participate, listen, and learn actively. We're tough on problems, easy on people. Our meetings are respectful and judgment-free. All positions, voices, and ideas are valued. And finally, we honor the agenda, so we'll do our part to keep us on track, and we ask that you try to align your questions with the topics at hand. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for those community agreements, Diana. And then this slide provides you two ways to access the materials for today's session. So you are able to access the slide deck as you always have on the CDE box site, which is linked to on screen. And you're also able to access the slide deck on the CSIS resources page, which is also linked to on screen. The CSIS resources page is the new location where CSIS will house all of our regional materials going forward. As we're currently in kind of a transition period, you can access the slide deck in both locations for the September regional session, and the slide deck and associated materials are identical in both locations. We will have presenters from CSIS as well as from the Education Data Management Division and the Special Education Division at the CDE for the September regionals today. Our presenters will also be monitoring the Q&A box to provide answers to your questions as we move throughout the slides. So presenting from CSIS will be Rima Mendez, our Fearless Requirements Management Officer, as well as Heather Coda from Requirements Management. We've also got Angela Ratty, our Client Services Architect, and myself also representing Client Services at CSIS. From the Education Data Management Division, we have Diana Casanova, who we just heard from for those community agreements, Education Administrator at the CALPADS office, and we also have Paula Mishima, an Education Administrator at the CALPADS office. We have Sean Walker, IT Specialist from the CALPADS office, and Dominic Johnson, IT Specialist in the Special Education Division. So those are our presenters from both CSIS and the CDE for today's regional meeting. And this slide shows you the agenda for today's session. So we'll begin with an overview of the 25-26 CALPADS submission calendar, and we'll look at the opening and deadline dates for the Fall 1, Fall 2, and new end of year collections. We'll then look at the new CALPADS authentication process planned to be implemented in 2026. Before we get into special education updates with the Special Education Division, we'll then move on to focus on the 25-26 school year and the data collections occurring in 2025 or 26. So we have our Fall 1 and Fall 2 submission changes and reminders, our end of year submission changes and new collections, and we have CALPADS support updates. And the CALPADS support updates will include a bit of differentiated assistance discussion, some CSIS supports for differentiated assistance, and then some updates on the CALPADS service desk. That is quite a bit of material to get through. in the time that we have here. So let's go ahead and jump right into the 25-26 CalPAD submission calendar. So the 25-26 CalPADS calendar is currently posted to both the CDE CalPADS reporting calendar page as well as the CalPADS user manual with the Fall 1, Fall 2, as well as the new end of year 1 and the new end of year 2 dates. Fall 1 begins on Census Day, which is the first Wednesday in October, and this year lands on October 1st. Fall 1 has an initial deadline of December 12th, followed by an amendment window and a final deadline of January 23rd this academic year. And it's important to note the asterisk on the slide for that December 12th, 2025 date, the initial certification date. LEA approval is required and CELPA approval is strongly encouraged. And the reason it is strongly encouraged is for disproportionality determinations. And the special education team will discuss this in more detail when we get to special education updates. In addition to the deadline dates, it's a best practice for LEAs to have 0 fatal errors by the recommended milestone date. So for Fall 1, this would be 0 fatal errors by Friday, November 21st, 2025. And the data collected in Fall 1 includes enrollment counts and dropouts, English language acquisition status and immigrant counts, free and reduced price meal eligibility, and special education data. And this slide shows the Fall 2 data collection calendar for 25-26. Fall 2 does also open on Census Day, but you can begin viewing snapshots, reports, and certification errors beginning just after the Fall 1 initial deadline, so in about mid-December. Fall 2 has no amendment window and only a single deadline of February 27th, 2026 this academic year. And the best practice for Fall 2 is to aim for 0 fatal errors by Friday, February 6th. Again, please note that Fall 2 has no amendment window. There is only a single deadline in Fall 2 with February 27th, 2026. And in Fall 2, we collect data on course enrollments, staff assignments and FTE, English learner services, and post-secondary outcomes for CTE completers. All right, this slide shows the CalPADS reporting calendar for the new end of year 1 and the new end of year 2 submissions. So remember, in the 25-26 academic year, we will be consolidating the former end of year 2, 3, and 4 into a new end of year 1 data collection. The current end of year 1 data collection will become end of year 2 and will be expanded to include one additional data set with graduates and completers. So the 2 new EOY collections will importantly not have the same certification or final deadline dates. Both the new end of year 1 and the new end of year 2 will open on May 5th, 2026. The new end of year 1 has an initial deadline of July 18th, followed by an amendment window and a final deadline of July 31st. The new end of year 2 has no amendment window and only a single deadline of August 17th this academic year. And the best practice for end of year 1 and end of year 2 is to work towards 0 fatal errors by the error-free milestone date. And for the new end of year 1, the error-free milestone date that we should aim for 0 fatal errors in the new end of year 1. In the new end of year 2, we should aim for 0 fatal errors by August 3rd. So August 3rd is the error-free milestone date for the new end of year 2. Again, the new end of year 1 is a consolidation of the former end of years 2 through 4. So that being the case, in the new end of year 1, we collect data on student programs, incidents and absences, English learner services and reclassification, homeless students, special education, and post-secondary status data for prior year completer students with disabilities. The new end of year 2 is the former end of year 1 plus graduates and completers. So in addition to graduates and completers, we collect course completion, CTE, and work-based learning data in the new end of year 2. It's important to note that the new end of year 1 submission includes the new attendance recovery collection, which is submitted in the staff assignment or STAS file, as well as the new expanded learning program, which is submitted in the new LEA program or LEAP file. Additionally, for students with disabilities, LEAs will be certifying one-year graduates and dropouts for the time period of July 1st through June 30th. And that does complete our discussion of the CalPADS reporting calendar for the 25-26 academic year. I do want to make good on that promise at the beginning of the session there to pause for questions at the end of each section. So do we have any questions in chat or in the Q&A box? I'm not seeing any. All right. It looks like we're all good to go so far with the CalPADS collection calendar for the 25-26 school year. Let's move on to the next section of the presentation here and discuss new authentication. And we'll send it over to Paula Mishima to discuss the new authentication process for CalPADS in 2026.
Great, thank you, Matt. Good morning, everybody. So I get to announce this announcement, which is basically we're going to be upgrading authentication in CalPADS. I think in a lot of other places of your life, whether it's the bank or your EV car or whatever, you're finding that more often there's more authentication to ensure that our data is kept safe. And this is particularly important for us since we have a lot of student level data. So we will be upgrading our authentication in CalPADS. Next slide. We're going to try to make it as easy as possible. We're giving you a big heads up. Basically, each of you, every user will need to obtain a new username and password for logging into CalPADS. And there's going to be a transition window for you to do this. We're starting it after Fall 2 ends, so March 2nd, and we're leaving that window open all the way to May 1st, which is right before end of year open. So it's that kind of that sweet little spot where there's not a submission going on. I know there's a lot of other stuff that you all are doing, but hopefully during that time frame, you'll be able to find the couple minutes or so basically to get your new username and password. Next slide. And basically what will happen when the transition window opens in March is when you see that CalPADS login screen, you'll see two options. One is logging in with your existing username and password, and another using your new username and password. Obviously, at first, none of you will have a new username and password, so you'll go ahead and just log in as always. And the first screen you'll see hopefully a big link that basically will prompt you to convert your account to the new one. And then from there, it'll just kind of prompt you through all the steps. Next slide. So what if you failed to get your new username and password during this window? It just means that you'll have to go through that process of getting a new CalPADS username and password by going through your CalPADS administrator. Any new employee who happens to get hired during this transition window will only be assigned a new username and password. Next slide. So in addition to changing basically our system for authentication in CalPADS, we will also, one reason we are doing that is because it enables us to also use multifactorial authentication. And what is multi-factor authentication? It just means there's more than one way that you will have to prove you are who you are in order to get into CalPADS. So once you get your new username and password, you will have to establish a second way to prove that you are who you are. And for CalPADS, unfortunately, it will be your username and password, and you'll get an access code through your email. Many of you might be used to doing this process through a text on your phone or other way. Unfortunately, initially, when we first turn on multi-factor authentication, it will only be through your email. It's kind of a cost issue. We would like to provide other options, but hopefully we'll be able to do that in the future. Next. So there will be lots of training and detailed information that will be forthcoming in a flash. CSILs will provide their great training videos to walk you through the steps. We'll be also, in fact, we've already started communicating with the County Technology Steering Committee, who tend to be the leaders for LEAs in terms of these kind of issues. We'll also obviously let your superintendents know, the SELPA directors and so forth. And then once that transition opens, we'll definitely be providing you lots of reminders about getting your new password through additional flashes and our bi-weekly digest as well as listserv messages. So that is that for that. I believe there's a couple questions in the chat. Will we have to use add login for every login? I believe that we will provide you the details on that. I believe, unfortunately, you probably will have to, but we will let you know for sure how that will be configured. Are users determining their own new username? Right now, all CalPADS users use their email as their username. You will be able to determine your own username, and it will not be an email. So that's one thing that will be a little confusing. Once you determine your username, all usernames will have at the end of it at calpads.org. I think it's org or com or something. So it's not actually an email, but it will look like it. But all of your emails, all of your usernames will be whatever you choose plus that add-on. Will future development consider removing the password and just using email authentication? The password itself adds no security if the email account is compromised. That is not something we've discussed. I will take that back as a suggestion, but right now it's basically username and password. Again, there'll be a lot more detail coming as we finish working through all of those details. But we're committed to trying to make this as painful and easy as possible. And it is just something, that we just have to do in terms of ensuring that CalPADS stays safe and secure. Will this potentially cause issues with submitting transactions within our vendor platforms? We will be able to. We are going to be working, obviously, with your SPED vendors on this. Initially, it will work just the same, except your SPED vendors themselves will have to receive new username and passwords. And Sue-Ann, I am concerned for staff who support multiple sites. We understand that concern, and we're aware of that concern, clearly. So thanks for that heads up. Okay, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Paula. Now we will send it over to Dominic Johnson to discuss special education updates in Fall 1.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having us here. First off, we have some brand new Part C plan data elements. We're collecting these two new data elements in order to meet IDEA State Performance Plan and Annual Performance Report indicator requirements for indicators number 1 and 8. So these two elements are related only to IFSP students, only students that are receiving Part C services. First, there is the Part C to B transition conference date, and then the Part C to B transition plan in IFSP indicator. And what these two data elements represent is just that the Part B agency and the Part C agency came together within the student being aged 2 years, 3 months to 2 years, 9 months to have the transition plan discussion for that student. The indicator would be yes or no that the plan is in place. And if that is indicated as a yes, then the transition conference date is the date that that plan was discussed. So those are the two new data elements for Part C. Degree of support is now required. That's going to be certified as part of the Fall 1 submission. The data that's certified in this Fall 1 submission will be used in Fall 2 for staff assignment analysis. If you have not already populated degree of support, this is something that we've been talking about for a year and a half. At this point, you may need to amend the plan record for the students so that there is a degree of support populated for the plan that is effective on census day. Guidance for determining the degree of support is found at the link in the slide, and it's an IEP team determination as to the degree of support. As mentioned earlier, as in prior years, you're required to approve your Fall 1 submission by the initial deadline, and self-approval is encouraged but not required. Again, the data used to calculate the one-year disproportionality risk ratio by setting primary disability and federal ethnicity categories is going to be pulled from CALPADS after that December 12th initial LEA certification deadline, rather than the close of the amendment window. These data will include data approved by the LEA only, or potentially data approved by the LEA and their SELPA. The data is again being harvested earlier so that annual determination letters can be issued in early February so that LEAs have more time to complete their compliance improvement monitoring activities.
Can I
Yes.
chime in real quick about that? Hi, everybody. Brandy Howdeggy from the Special Education Division. Just wanted to reiterate here that it is really important that you collaborate with your CALPADS administrators. So my special education folks, you need to collaborate with your CALPADS administrators and your student information system administrators to make sure that the race ethnicity data is accurate by that initial certification deadline. If the race ethnicity data is not accurate by that time, it could potentially put a district into a disproportionality status for purposes of determining significant disproportionality. And why should that matter to you? Because if a district moves into significant disproportionality status, they literally have to set aside 15% of their IDEA funds. Okay, so it is super important, CALPADS administrators, that you work really closely with your SPED administrators to ensure that all race ethnicity data for all students, not only students with disabilities, are accurate when you certify in that initial certification deadline. And I know a lot of times you guys wait until the amendment window to make those corrections, but it literally will impact your district if the district has been found disproportionate in prior years. So please make sure that it's updated by that deadline. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy. This is another thing we were looking to push for this year, would be submitting discipline data year-round. So we think the best practice would be to submit incident data on a monthly basis. Constant or consistent data submission improves your data quality, helps you avoid that end-of-year logjam where you're trying to submit everything over the course of the opening of the end-of-year window. It allows incident data to be reviewed by key staff members before they take off for the summer break. It encourages local site administrators to submit incident data regularly, allowing for periodic reviews of the incident data, which again improves data quality, improves the validity and reliability. And it helps ensure the accuracy of incident data that's used in monitoring determinations and the compliance improvement monitoring process. To assist LEAs in monitoring these discipline incidents year-round, a new incident-related ODS, Operational Data Store, or real-time report, is slated to be released this winter, December or January, and LEAs will be notified when this new report becomes available. And last but not least, the Fall Special Education Data Roadshows. Starting next Monday, we will be traveling up and down the state to our wonderful hosts who have agreed to put us up and let us speak on some of the changes that are coming for the Fall 1 data collection and other special education updates. You can find registration information at the link in the slide, and hopefully we'll see you out there.
All right. Thank you so much, Dominic and Brandy, for the special education updates.
Thank you, Matt.
Now let's turn it over to Rima from the requirements management team to discuss some general changes in CALPADS for the 25-26 school year.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. So just wanted to go over some few things that changed or got updated with our code sets. So for our primary language codes, CDE had identified some issues with some of the mapping from when we did the 2-character to the 3-character codes, and those corrections were made. But while also doing that, recognized that we needed to add 3 more new codes, which have already been added, and they've already been effective July 1st of this year. So it was made available in CalPads before the school year rollover or even after end of year ended. And you'll also see that we have some updated code names and definitions, so they're more in alignment. Go to the next slide, Matt. And then we also have some course group state codes that got added. There's 3 new course codes, and Sean will be discussing this later on in this presentation, so I won't go too much into that. And then we also have transfer category code update to code definition number 5. It's basically clarifying that the code should not be used for students who transfer to a county office of education operating at a charter school that it's not authorized based off a specific ed code. And that's written in the definition itself. And then also we added a whole new code set is around the new LEA program, new LEAP file. And it's very specific to expanded learning programs. And Paula will go more into that later on in this presentation as well. And the next few slides are around updates to the SPED code set. I'm not going to go too much into it, but it's basically a refinement and restructuring of meeting delay codes, special education service location codes, and referring party codes. And there will be a future flash from the SPED office that will discuss more into detail about this. And I'm sure that our program office will also be, the SPED program office will be relaying this information during the roadshows coming up in the fall. All right, next slide, please, Matt. Now we're on to the migrant. So based off of previous years, I just want to throw this out here for the code sets. This is probably a smaller change of code sets that we've done in previous years. So we're trying to maintain, not adding too much information, but even though we're adding new, LEAP file this year, code sets are still minimal compared to in previous years. All right, let's go on to the migrant student reminders. So if you don't know already, CalPads now provides LEAs with the new extract on their migrant students. And now we are the authoritative source of that information. And so what does that mean? So LEAs no longer have to populate the migrant ID field in the student program file. And we've also retired code 135, which was retired June 30th, 2025. And we also included a new migrant education program status container, which is at the bottom of the student's detail screen in CalPads. So it's a read-only screen, so you can see more information of each student there as you search for a specific student ID. You can see that information on their migrant status eligibility information there. And we also now provide weekly extract, and LEAs should be able to download and extract and then upload that information into their SIS system. And LEAs should not upload migrant statuses from other sources. And this information was provided in a previous flash 308. And if you don't have this flash, you can go on to the CDE CalPads webpage, communications. You can see all the previous flashes in there, and this flash is there as well too, and then goes into much more detail than what we're presenting here. Okay, next slide. So we just wanted to give you an idea for those who are not aware of how to extract this new extract. Users can request this via the CalPads Extract ODS Extract User Interface menu. And you can either search by active student, which is our default, or you can search by the data range here. One of the things that we've noticed here that we've been getting questions about is in regards to the record history and records added since. And so we wanted to make a point of saying that if you're going to search based off of record history for an active student, if you're searching by that and the most recent, LEAs will only get the most recent MEPS record per each currently enrolled students. If you were to search by active students and all, then all LEAs will get MEPS records for each student currently enrolled in their district. So students may have multiple MEPS records. And if you were to search by the date range, LEAs can either get searched by all or most recent MEPS records for students enrolled within that certain date range. And some of the questions that we've been getting specifically is about that records added since. And if you look on the left side of the screen, you'll see where we circled that one in. So if you leave that blank, LEAs will get all the MEPS record added to CALPADS as of July 1st, 2025, when CALPADS started receiving MEPS data. If you don't add in the date there, LEAs will get MEPS records added or updated since that last date. And so we're going to, for future enhancements, we're probably going to do a label change on that as we keep hearing feedback that we get from the field. And so we're just trying to make this a little bit more user-friendly for everybody. And so if you do have any specific feedback, please definitely submit a service desk ticket on that so it comes our way.
Hey, Rima, can I just add a little bit to that?
Sure.
This is Paula. We don't have a report right now in CALPADS. And I know one complaint we used to hear about the foster reports was that we never were able to, you couldn't tell who the new foster kids are. So every week you look at that report and it show all the foster kids, not just the new ones. So the records added since, the idea behind that is that if you choose, say, last Monday, then you will only see the records that have either been changed. So you'll be able to see your new migrant students, students who are no longer eligible. So that was just to help you see on a, whatever basis you want, who are your new students or who are no longer eligible. It kind of just makes it easier for you to see that. So we just wanted to explain why we added that filter, and it's new, and so it's a little confusing. So we know that there's been some questions at the service desk, but I just want to explain functionally that's what the hope was, to provide you that.
And it's a similar concept to the direct cert extract where you can do the same thing. And so that was one of the reasons why we added it to this extract. All right. And so this is what MEPS extract layout looks like. You'll see that you have your SSID, the MSIN number, eligibility start date, end of eligibility date, required MSD number, as well as retirement date. And again, this extract will be updated on a weekly basis with new migrant students. And again, LEA should download this extract and then upload it into their SIS system, as this, again, the extract is the authoritative source for students with migrant statuses. And just to note, and to reiterate what Paula just said, the last update date reflects the last date a record was updated. So LEAs may want to use that field to identify new migrant students or a change in eligibility date or retirement in MSD date as well. All right. Future enhancements, and Paula already discussed a little bit about that. We have a tentative real-time reports that also known as ODS reports. We will implement reports later on this year. And also one more system update that we will be doing is on the CALPADS homepage messages, we'll have an auto-populate update when MEPS data is refreshed. So you should see that message come up weekly because we get weekly updates from MSIN. And that won't probably go into effect until maybe a couple more weeks. We're working on that. All right, I'm going to pass it over to, are there any questions?
You mind answering this one live? I know Kyron's typing, but it's important for everyone to hear. It's how do we upload the migrant to our SIS?
Yes. So your SIS should be able to provide a way to update the extract that you received from CALPADS into your SIS system. So if you're unsure of that, please contact your SIS vendor, or you can also submit a service desk ticket and we can help facilitate anything on your end.
Thanks very much.
And we had communicated to the SIS vendors about this new extract as well. All right, I'll pass it over to, I think, Paula.
Yeah, I guess that's me. This is just a reminder. As you know, we have these new CCGI flashes that are on our communications page, and each of the flashes stress the fact that we do have new state law that basically says by January 2026, all LEAs serving 9th through 12th grade students are required to have partnered with the California College Guidance Initiative, or CCGI. So we're just reminding everyone of that new requirement. Many of you all have, but I think there's still a few stragglers out there. And then by June 30th of next year, LEAs will have had to provide at least one initial data file to CCGI. And in order to do that, in order to meet that June 30th, 2026 deadline, you really should have completed the onboarding process to bring transcript-informed accounts onto CCGI for their students. Okay, so that's just a big reminder. Also, part of that legislation statute basically now requires CSIS in collaboration with CDE to create and maintain a list of the student information system vendors and their capabilities of doing what is required to get those transcripts over to CCGI. And that matrix is currently, we just published it online. There's the link right there. So you can see the progress as to where your vendor is on being capable to help you get those transcripts up to CCGI. So this is just a big reminder. Okay, so Sunbucks. There's only 4 Sunbucks slides, so we're not going to get too much into Sunbucks. The main thing is, there was so much confusion around that September 2nd date. So what happened on September 2nd was simply that's the end of the eligibility period for 2025 Sunbucks. That means all families, in order to be eligible for 2025 Sunbucks, they needed to get their UBA, or Universal Benefits Application, into the school district, not up to CALPADS or not up to EDCS, but to the school district. And again, the only families that needed to submit a UBA are those who were not already directly certified, or migrant, foster homeless, etc. Okay, so now that that deadline is done, that means any applications that you all have received on or before September 2nd, those are the ones you should be focusing on in terms of processing them, identifying whether or not those kids meet the eligibility requirements to be eligible for Sunbucks. Once you've done that, then you need to upload them to EDCS, following what we talked about in the flash regarding holding back 3% for verification and so forth. But you need to get those up to EDCS. The sooner you can, if you can process those applications that you received by September 2nd and get them uploaded into EDCS by the September deadline, which I think is on the next slide, those we can then get over to the Department of Social Services and the cards can get out, which means families will get their benefit. So it'd be really great if you can process as many of those as possible by the end of the month. After that's done, you should focus on all those applications that you held back for verification, get those verified, and assuming that they are verified and the student is eligible, to get those records up into EDCS. You have a long time to do this because you have until basically December 31st, but we really do urge folks to try to do this as soon as you can, because it means that students will get those benefits earlier. So these are the remaining dates for being able to upload the records into EDCS. So you have 4 more opportunities, with December 31st being the last time that you can get those applications processed that were submitted to you by September 2nd, processed into EDCS so that we can then get it over to the Department of Social Services. So that's 2025 Sunbucks. We're almost done with 2025 Sunbucks. I want to just give you a little bit of thought about 2026 Sunbucks. we will be doing a flash on 2026 SUMBUCs. Not too much will have changed, but there will be some changes. But what I do want to say right now is that any applications, UBA applications that were submitted after September 2nd, you should go ahead and process those, because if a student is eligible based on that UBA application, it does make them eligible for UPC. Okay. So that's why you should continue to process those applications, even though you're not going to need to get them up to EDCS until next year. And all of that will be explained in the flash. So you should be still processing those applications for UPC services purposes. Okay. And if you do that by October 31st, they can be included in that 25-26 UPC. Okay, so really your new kind of deadline now you want to aim for is processing UBAs, as well as alt income forms, NSLP applications, whatever else will get a kid eligible for UPC. You should try to do that. If they're received by October 31st, you should process those and make sure they get into CALPADS by the December, I think it's December 12th, for fall one, okay, because that will get them included in your P1 for LCFF. Again, more information will be coming about how you then submit records to EDCS, because you will not be submitting those records until EDCS will open up in April. Okay, next slide. So this slide is mostly because this is something that's very, very confusing, and hopefully written down here on one slide, it will help you understand. But basically, for local control funding formula purposes, for UPC purposes, LEAs are just reminded that students enrolled on Census Day, October 1st, 2025 this year, who have submitted an alt income form, UBA, or NSLP application by October 31st must submit your program record 181 or 182 to CALPADS with a start date that's between July 1, 2025 and October 31st, 2025. That is not new. That's always been the case. For us to be able to capture that kid for UPC, the start date needs to be July 1, between July 1 and October 31st. Okay. The part that we've gotten questions on, and that's a little confusing, is that as a best practice for LCFF purposes, only alt income forms and UBAs collected during the spring registration of the preceding school year, which are evaluated based on 2025-26 income eligibility guidelines, and those guidelines do come out in the spring, so you have time, can be included for 25-26 UPC, okay? But you also must submit those 181, 182 records with a start date of July 1 or after. Okay, so that's UPC purposes. Just note that for UBA submitted by families before July 1, make those students eligible for 2025 SUMBUCs, but not 2026 SUMBUCs, okay? Because once that application is submitted, basically, to be eligible for 2026 SUMBUCs, that eligibility period starts July 1, 2025. Okay, so that's again for UBA purposes. So I know that's all really confusing. So hopefully later on you can just sit down and read this slide and it'll make some sense to you. Okay, so that's the update for SUMBUCs. And I don't know if there's one question here regarding Q1. I imported the extended benefit student for year 24-25 before the deadline. Now I'm ready to send EB for 25-26. Well, excluded my previous import that is in a replacement file, do I have to include the first import as well? For EDCS, what you should be submitting every time is a full replacement file. So that's all the students who you're submitting basically for 2025 SENBUCs. Anything for 2026 SENBUCs shouldn't submit that yet. Okay. If this is confusing, just submit a service desk ticket and I could answer more specifically. Okay, UBA eligible students will require, okay, any UBA student you're submitting to EDCS, you're submitting that to EDCS for purposes of getting them cards, getting those students their SENBUCs cards. Has nothing to do, there's no way we capture or use that data for UPC. In order to get those kids counted as in the UPC, you have to submit a 181, 182 records, just as you've always done. Okay, so there's two different purposes, two different ways that you have to report that data.
There's one question on here that I wanted to answer, Paula. It's about, I think it's Sydney that asked it for the county alt ed schools. How do we report when we aren't WASC accredited or A through G? And so CALPADS doesn't collect WASC accreditation for courses that aren't A through G. You just don't label them the A through G indicator. So that's how we collect it. However, if you need additional information on WASC, if you can please put in a service ticket, I'll gladly provide you with those email addresses. I believe there are 2 for CDE and that process that you go through for WASC accreditation. And then for A through G, that goes through the UC-CSU system for courses to be approved. And that one's in the FAQ, Sydney.
Okay, and then I think this is a new question from Charlene. Again, right now, EDCS is open for 2025 SENBUCs only. So only submit data related to getting your kids 2025 SENBUCs. That means any applications that were submitted on September 2nd or before. Any applications that families submit after September 2nd, 2025, you're going to process them for UPC service purposes, but not for SENBUCs. So just hold on to that information and we will tell you when to submit that for 2026 SENBUCs. Are we required to collect alt income forms or UBAs from all families, or does the parent data confirmations count as alt income form? I'm not sure what parent data confirmations, what you're referring to there, but
Data confirmations are a tool that SIS systems use, and it basically it's a way for them to collect the alt income information. It's another name for it that SIS vendors call it.
okay. Well, the alt income form, or I guess if that's the same as data confirmation, that works for UPC. Under people counts, but it does not work for making a student eligible for SENBUCs. Okay, some LEAs have decided to just go ahead and continue collecting alt income forms from all students because it's easier. They've built it into their registration processes, etc. That's fine to do, but it does not work for UBA for SENBUCs. If you want your students to receive SENBUCs benefits, they need to submit that UBA if they're attending a school that is operating under a community eligibility provision. And again, you don't need the only students that need UBAs are if they're attending a CEP school, which most schools nowadays are. But if they're directly certified, if they're migrant, homeless, or foster, they don't need to submit a UBA. Okay, so that's just a reminder. Right now, we're looking at the data, and in terms of all the data submitted into the EDCS, many of the students who have UBAs are also directly certified or they're migrant foster home, there's something else. So they didn't actually need to submit that UBA, except we understand there's always a timing issue. You're not sure if the kid is going to be directly certified, so you do it anyway, and so forth. So we understand all of that. But just understand that if your students are directly certified, they don't need a UBA. Okay. If this is our base year, am I holding on to the UBAs to submit for 2026 SENBUCs, not the 2025 SENBUCs? You know, can you just submit that in a ticket and I can make sure I answer it absolutely accurately? Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paula. Now we're going to send it back over to Sean for the SOARS system.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to have you all today. So for our SOARS, or our Student Online Accountability Record Status, this is a reminder to all LEA CALPADS data administrators that you were notified of your SOARS system release on July 3rd, 2025 from our CDE AMAR division. The availability of the student level data file that identifies your EL students in your district or independently reporting charters. They were certified for your as enrolled in CALPADS on the 2024 census day. And they were determined to be long-term English learners, or your LTELs, or your ARs for at risk of becoming an LTEL. For these students, please ensure that you are downloading that copy of those files. So therefore, you can be able to insert that file into your SIS systems, because they're a great benefit for your EL coordinators to be able to provide services to those students in a timely manner, and also to be able to calculate for your dates. If you don't have that outline or you don't have that file, please go ahead and search your emails for it. I'm pretty sure it's just something that you may have overlooked, okay? Or it may be in your junk or your spam. If not, then you have put in the resource to be able to contact for CDE to be able to obtain that file. Again, this file went to, or this notice and the letter and the directions to be able to download your SOARS file, it went to all CALPADS administrators back on July 3rd, 2025. That file is only available until close of business of September 30th. So if you don't download the file before then, it just simply gets removed from the system. Thank you. Evan, can dashboard coordinators who have access to SOARS also download? Yes, Evan, they can. So if you have access to your SOARS account, then yes, you can download the LTEL AR-LETEL files. It was provided, the letter went out to your CALPADS administrators and also your dashboard coordinators, Evan. Thank you for that. And it is a two-step process that provided passwords as well. It's a wealth of instruction there. So please make sure that you go through it. On the slide there, I presented, it even included the two definitions for LTEL. So yes, it is an abundance of information. From Anne, we had a change in staff at the beginning of July. You started on the person in the position. Yes, I did provide that information in the chat, Anne. And I will, I think Matt is copying it for me and typing it to the question too. Right, Matt?
I got you, Sean.
Thank you. So, Anne, it'll be, thank you so much, Matt. So, Anne, you'll have it both there in your question and in the chat for anyone else that needs it, for that email to dashboard@cde.ca.gov.
All right. And
Thank you.
after the break, we're back to you, Sean, with Fall 1 and Fall 2 submission changes and reminders.
My pleasure. Thank you. So first up, we have a reminder of the differences between certification reports 1.17 and 1.1. The reason we included this reminder is due to an increase in questions of the data submitted by LEAs for FRPM and LCFF. Probably about 5 years back, Brandy did several training sessions on this. However, with the changing of staff, we understand that things can get confusing, and sometimes even us veterans, we just forget, okay? So we wanted to be able to stress this one because it does have large financial impacts for your LEAs. So although reports 1.1 and 1.17 are similar, these reports have very different functionality, and the purposes, they have very different functionality and purposes, and it should be verified for your data accuracy prior to your Fall 1 certification. As an overview for your FRPM records, your 181 and 182, they must overlap Census Day, this year 10/1, to be counted in your to be counted. And then in your non-LCF uses, FRPM. And then also for FRPM, it also has just that broader allowance for these records. But LEA should approach this more narrowly and understand that if that start day is after Census Day, but before 11/1, the student will only be counted as FRPM for LCFF and not for the actual FRPM file for your federal reporting or for your SED. Please note the changes to the reports for 1.1 and 1.7. They will be as of 10/1, which is the official opening of the submission window. And for those changes, I'll get to them in the next few. So changes to your 1.17, 1.18, 1.19, 1.20, and your CA 1.17. So the most notable change for that one is going to be your LCFF age eligibility logic, which is going to include 4-year-old TK students born on or before 9/1. And then for your 1.17, we are having the renaming of your total enrollment column to your LCFF eligible total enrollment. And then for report 1.17 and your CA 1.17, to support LEA's review of their UPC count. And again, notice it's a UPC count, your unduplicated pupil count. 2 new columns will be added that provide the LEA's prior year UPC count and the difference between the current and the prior year UPC counts. The new columns are for informational purposes only and are intended to help your LEAs identify their UPC counts that are correct. And then similarly, in report 1.1, you'll have the 2 comparing columns again, but again, that is just for your prior year counts, okay? And so your prior year and then your current year and the difference between those 2 counts. And so if you are like me and you are very much a visual learner, then this here will definitely help you out. So the informational only pieces here, you have for your 1.17, you have your prior year for your UPC, and then you have your count differences there, okay? You also have the renaming here for your LCFF eligible total enrollments. And then here you have your EL eligible. So removing that word funding there. And then for what will your 1.1 report look like? Again, the informational only, and then the prior year difference there, and the naming of those 2 columns. Okay, so this will help to ensure your data accuracy. Basically, if you're seeing these numbers drop really far off or so, there might be something that you're missing. There might be some data that you need to add in. But again, it's informational, and so it's just to support, be able to get all of your totals right. And when you are submitting those to your different administrators to be able to review, it's important to provide this information to them for those columns so that way they can readily see. I'm going to pause here and take questions before I go into the course updates really quickly. Sir Patty, can you go over one more time on the difference between the 1.17 and the 1.1? Yeah, sorry, you just want to get it right. I completely understand, Patty. So here for the 1.1 and 1.17, the noticeable difference, okay, is for your 181 and your 182 records. For 1.17, they must start before your October 31st, okay? 1.1, it has the allowance of all. They just have to overlap census day. So that's the biggest key difference. 1.1 allows you to be able, it just has to have that census day, where students here for your 1.17, those students, they have a longer date, okay, to be able to qualify for other funding. So one has a broader allowance, 1.17 has a broader allowance, 1.1 has a more narrow scope. And Nate's going to provide you some additional context as well, too. Thank you, Nate. And so moving on to the course updates, Rima presented on these earlier. Thank you, Rima, to the 3 course code changes that we provided. This was a request from the field that we gladly supported. So we have added in, as part of your fall 2 submission, the course codes 9701 VI, 9702 OI, and 9703 HI. Okay, so for these course codes, they are being used in conjunction with your CRSE file and also your staff assignment file, so your SAS. You have to ensure that you're populating within the course file your 9.22, your instructional strategy, which must be that 700 for special education. And then for your SAS file, you have to ensure that you are populating the 8.13, which is the 12 teacher code. Notice there is a key difference for the 12 teacher code. These teachers may not be coded as a 27. And since they cannot be coded as a 27, then students must be attached to this course. Okay, and that is because we want to be able to verify the credentialing for the students and easily map your CALPADS data to what is provided for CalSAS, so you are not getting erroneous misassignments. Okay, you got those before by trying to add in a 9231 for these teachers when all of them didn't always have a 9231, which is that RSP authorization. And that brings me to the end of mine. I don't see any questions for it, so I am going to gladly pass it back over to Matt.
All right. Thank you, Sean. Let's send it back over to Paula now to discuss the end of year submission changes and the new end of year data collections, the EOY consolidation, attendance recovery, and the expanded learning program.
Great, thanks, Matt. So I don't have to say too much of this because Matt did a great job of talking about it earlier, but this puts all in one slide, just the main new things for end of year 1 and 2. As Matt had said previously, end of year 1, the new one will have the previous data that was collected for end of year 2, 3, and 4, minus the 1-year grads and completers. For students with disabilities, there is going to be a new report that's the count of graduates and dropouts between July 1 and June 30th. That is new. That's needed for federal reporting, that different timeline. And then the new expanded learning program submitted on the new LEA program or LEAP file, that will be part of end of year 1. The extended attendance recovery, which was part of the STAS file, which was part of end of year 3, that will be part of end of year 1. For end of year 2, it's pretty much end of year 1 plus the 1-year grads and completers. For all students between that time frame is different. It's not July 1 to June 30. It's still the August 16th through August 15th date. And then the final date, again, is the same date that the data will be pulled from the 4-year cohort. So that's all just, again, helping everyone just reset their thinking for end of year this coming year. And this, again, just summarizes the main deadlines. Okay. So attendance recovery, I would just wanted to make sure that you're aware of the FAQs put up by our School Fiscal Services Division, as they're kind of the lead on this program. So there's the URL. The changes to the STAS file and related validations and report changes, they're not in the system yet. They'll be implemented in the coming months, clearly prior to end of year, but we're trying to prioritize that to come in sooner, because we do know that some of you start submitting some of your STAS data earlier so that you can see what it looks like. The new real-time report, there will also be a new real-time report, which we used to call ODS reports, that will show report 14.1 will be implemented, and you will be seeing in that new report the new column displaying attendance recovery days. So I'm not going to read through this slide in the next, but I just wanted to highlight 3 new FAQs that are on that page that was on the preceding slide. This question kept coming up, and there continues to be some confusion, so I thought I should just highlight these FAQs, which basically say, all 3 of them are basically saying that in order for you to claim attendance recovery minutes to count towards your attendance recovery day, they have to be in increments of whole hours. I know a lot of LEAs, they might have school periods that are 50 minutes, so they were thinking of having a 15-minute period before school and after school in order to do their attendance recovery program. But unfortunately, that doesn't work, because one 50-minute session is not an hour, and it needs to be in whole hour increments in order to count towards attendance recovery. This also means that you can't have 30 minutes one day, 30 minutes the next day, and add those all up to be whatever the requirement is. It's 240 minutes or whatever. Again, they all have to be in hour increments. So I just wanted to make that clear, because there's been lots of confusion about it. So refer to those FAQs. So this is just another FAQ along the same lines that you can read through. So expand the learning program. Again, we've provided information in Flash 305. We just wanted to make sure you knew that the new LEAP file is not yet in production. Clearly, we'll have that available before end of year opens. And we are planning actually in having a UAT with vendors and select LEAs to test that file before it does go live, which will probably happen in the January, February 2026 timeframe. So just letting you know that don't try to upload any ELP records yet, because it's not yet available. Okay, that was it for me. Do we have any information around the rationale behind the 1 hour increment rule for AR? Yeah, the rationale is it's in legislation. That's actually specifically in statute. We know that this will be probably difficult for folks to implement. And I encourage you to, communicate your superintendent otherwise if this is a big barrier towards implementing this program, but that's currently the law.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Paula. All right, now let's move into the final section of the presentation today with the CALPADS support updates. So here we'll discuss CALPADS Differentiated Assistance, or DA, and CSIS initiatives to support CALPADS DA, as well as service desk support updates. All right, so the CALPADS pathway to DA is being implemented in a phased approach. Phase 1 began in the end of year data collections for the 23 to 24 academic year. And phase 1 was based on whether LEAs were able to certify the end of year data collections in CALPADS. We weren't interested in timelines yet in 23-24, but we were interested in kind of a binary yes or no indication with regards to whether LEAs were able to certify. And I am happy to report that no LEAs became eligible for DA through the CALPADS pathway in the 23-24 academic year. In 24-25, we used certification by final CALPADS deadlines as the criteria for inclusion in DA using the CALPADS pathway. So in 24-25, any LEA that failed to certify by the final certification deadline of the Fall 1, Fall 2, or last academic year, the end of years 1 through 4 data collections, became eligible for 1 year of DA, and that will become official with the release of the California School Dashboard in November of this year. So the first LEAs who became eligible for DA through the CALPADS pathway will officially become eligible with the release of the California School Dashboard in November. Senate Bill 114 additionally states that LEAs who fail to certify accurate, correct, and complete data will become eligible for DA under the CALPADS pathway. And in 2026, the CDE will be adding data quality and accuracy eligibility criteria for CALPADS DA, and that will also be implemented in a phased approach. Data quality is being handled programmatically by the various business areas at the CDE, and we will release the CALPADS DA data quality criteria in a phased approach and in advance of you being subjected to that criteria as CDE department staff become ready to support CALPADS DA. But we don't have any information on the additional data quality criteria in 2026 for you today. So in response to the first LEAs becoming eligible for DA using the CALPADS pathway with the release of the California School Dashboard in November, as well as in preparation and response to the 2026 implementation of data quality criteria for CALPADS DA, CSIS will be holding a statewide data governance academy with 3 sessions held in 5 regions throughout the state in the 25-26 academic year. The purpose of the academy is to assist LEAs in improving data quality, both in CALPADS and throughout the organization, with enterprise-wide collaboration around data that is supported by frameworks, policies, procedures, and audits. Session 1 of the Data Governance Academy will be held in October with both in-person and watch party registration available. San Diego, Riverside, Fresno, Santa Clara, and Shasta County Offices of Education will be hosting in-person sessions of the Data Governance Academy for their surrounding regions throughout the month of October. And participants will receive maximum value by participating in the in-person session. However, if you're unable to attend in person, we'll be offering watch party attendance to groups of participants at LEAs in each region who are unable to attend in person. Watch party sites are responsible for registration and for sign-in sheets for individuals participating at their site, as well as for designating a watch party facilitator. We will get a lot of hands-on practice with activities, exercises, drills, simulations, and things like that. And we do need a facilitator from our watch parties to help guide the group through those activities. So individuals wishing to attend virtually must register and attend through a watch party site, and there is no virtual registration outside of a watch party site. We are maintaining a list of watch party sites for the Data Governance Academy in each region here at CSIS. So please do reach out to me to locate a watch party site in your region, and I'll put my email in chat here as soon as I am able to. The intended audience for the Data Governance Academy is executive or cabinet level leadership and leaders who oversee the entire enterprise. And this is because these leaders are some of the only folks that are in a position to pull the various business areas at an LEA together to perform data work. The Data Governance Academy is also intended for CALPADS administrators and for differentiated assistance county office staff. The Data Governance Academy is implemented in response to the CALPADS pathway to DA, and CALPADS and DA folks involved in the remediation process will learn valuable lessons for that process in the Data Governance Academy. So we do hope that you register and attend with your team of leaders, CALPADS, and differentiated assistance folks. Both in-person and watch party site registration is available on the CSIS website, and we have put a QR code linking you to the site on this slide. I will say there are 3 registration options for the Data Governance Academy, and 2 of those options are being handled on the CSIS training registration site. So we are handling in-person registration at San Diego, Riverside, Fresno, Shasta, and Santa Clara county offices. We're also registering watch party sites through the CSIS website. If you are an individual who is looking to attend with a watch party site, those watch party sites will be handling the registration at their locations. So if you are interested in registering with a watch party site, please reach out to me and I can help you to locate a watch party site and get into contact with those folks to register at the site. All right, before I move on from the Data Governance Academy, it looks like we have some questions here. Why do we need to attend at a watch party? What is wrong with being able to attend at your office and watch? So the kind of enterprise-wide effort and the team building that's involved in data management processes, particularly in CALPADS, but across the data systems at the LEA, are a big lesson of the Academy and a big kind of central point of the Academy. So we do really want you to attend with your teams. We want you to attend with leaders, CALPADS, and differentiated assistance folks so that you're able to discuss in groups and go through activities and exercises together so that you can learn lessons as an LEA team. And that's a lot more difficult to do if you're just an individual at a computer who's kind of interacting with the Zoom environment, but not able to kind of turn to your colleagues and discuss. So we're really trying to emphasize the group dynamic, get folks collaborating together and working together on all of these processes. So that is why we are not allowing individual virtual registration, but only the watch party site side of things. Was the Data Governance Academy sent to superintendents? We did present to the California County Superintendents Group on the Data Governance Academy last month in early August, and we also have distributed our flyer and a small blurb about the Data Governance Academy in the California County Superintendents newsletter. So the superintendents, at least the county superintendents, should be aware of the Academy, and we are encouraging them, as well as CBOs, CTOs, leadership with enterprise-wide influence. We are encouraging all of those folks to attend with us and bring their teams. Is the Data Governance Academy mandatory or just suggested? It is not mandatory, but it is offered free to county offices and to LEAs, and it does provide quite a bit of assistance for data management improvement in differentiated assistance remediation. So while it is just suggested, it is of a high value to county offices and to LEAs. And so it is optional, but a lot of folks have chosen to register and to participate with us in October. All right. Were certain LEAs invited to the Data Governance Academy based on their end of year submissions? We did not reach out to any individual LEA to try to guarantee attendance, whether they were eligible for DA based on the 24-25 data collections in CALPADS. But we do encourage both the LEAs who will become eligible for DA in November, as well as the county offices supporting those LEAs to register and attend the Data Governance Academy. We don't have the authority to require the LEA to attend, but we do think that this will really help you to improve data management processes, which will have very, very positive CALPADS effects for you. All right, so we have, was the Data Governance Academy sent to superintendents again? So it was communicated to county superintendents. We have asked folks to reach out to the LEAs in their county office networks to share that as well. but superintendents, particularly at the county level, should be aware of the Data Governance Academy and should be hopefully interested in attending. Are CALPADS administrators allowed to attend both sessions? Yes, we encourage CALPADS administrators in particular to attend, but we encourage you to attend with a team that includes folks who will be working in the differentiated assistance process and your LEA's leadership. And so we do encourage CALPADS administrators to attend with their teams there. And then final question from Chantel. So each LEA should have a team that goes or one person from an LEA. We would always suggest you come with a team. For the Data Governance Academy, we suggest you come with a team that includes leadership, your CALPADS administrator, and folks who will be working in the differentiated assistance process. Okay, and then one final question, will there be registration emails sent out to the SPED data staff for the Data Governance Academy? I did not anticipate marketing to the special education data staff in particular, but with that suggestion, I will reach out to Dominic and the special education folks at CDE to see what kind of communications we can get out to you guys. All right, and that does bring us to the end of the questions there. So that is the Data Governance Academy. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very excited to talk about it. So if you do have any questions, please do feel free to email me and I can respond to your questions via email. And let me put my email in chat right there. Be responsible with that, everyone. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have the Universal Supports Toolkit. So the Data Governance Academy is meant to assist county offices providing DA support to their districts and to support districts in DA. But the Data Governance Academy isn't the sole initiative for differentiated assistance support at CSIS. In addition to our academy, CSIS also offers a Universal Supports Toolkit for use in data management improvement and remediation. The Universal Supports Toolkit contains 3 tools that will help you to determine a baseline of performance with data management and root causes for performance issues in determining improvement targets and action plans. The Data Management Maturity Model and Assessment are the flagship and centerpiece resources of the toolkit and are best at evaluating data management or governance programs at medium to large LEAs. The Root Cause Analysis Guidebook has LEAs engage with a large language model in determining root causes and iterating a problem statement, executive summary, and action plan. The Root Cause Analysis Guidebook is best at small LEAs or at any LEA that is working to improve a targeted area of data management. The Data Management Maturity Model and Assessment are available on the CSIS website now. And again, the QR code is contained on the slide here. The Root Cause Analysis Guidebook will be released on our website in the coming weeks. We're just making sure that our interactions with that large language model go exactly as planned here. And in session 1 of the Data Governance Academy, we will get hands-on practice with these tools when we consider data governance audits. And that is the preview of our 2 CSIS initiatives meant to support differentiated assistance remediation through the CALPADS pathway. So with the Data Governance Academy and Universal Supports Toolkit out of the way, let me go ahead and send it over to Angela for some service desk updates.
Hang in there, everybody. Thank you, Matt. We are in the home stretch. So I'm going to briefly talk about some new changes that are in the multiple identifier functionality. We'll be covering the fall roadmaps and checklists, the report mapping guides, and best practices for service requests. And with that, I'm going to do a live demonstration. I'll note that we are in our test environment, so you won't be seeing any personally identifiable data, PII. So starting with the mid changes under online maintenance, anomaly management, multiple identifier. And just as a refresher, multiple identifier is when it appears that a student has more than one SSID that should be unique to the student throughout their K-12 career, or I guess now preschool, in CALPADS. And sometimes kids end up with 2. Sometimes they look like they have 2, but they are different students. And so that's what the screen is all about. And we have introduced some new changes. Some of you may have already encountered it. But primarily is a new validation that will prevent you from merging 2 SSIDs. This is the SPED 648, and it has to do with students with disabilities. If both SSIDs have a students with disabilities record with the same effective start date, but maybe a different operational key, say one of them says eligible and the other says not eligible, we're not going to let you merge those two SSIDs until that's reconciled. That effective start date is key in CALPADS, and so we need to know which one is accurate before we will allow you to merge that. And we have a couple new warnings, and they revolve around the SELA records, the Student English Language Acquisition. Originally, we had planned to make these fatal, but it got a little bit tricky, and especially with the SELA, a lot of times you as a user don't have the option to make those data corrections. They come directly from ETS. So good news on that front is we are having discussions with ETS to more streamline the merging of SELA records when you have two students that maybe have conflicting SELA records. We're trying to work with them to see if there's something we can do on our end so that you don't have to be grappling with that. More to come on that. That's more of a long-term project. So we went ahead and implemented these changes, as we're going to see today, where one thing that I really like is you have a little bit more information on the two students now, or the two SSIDs, in that you can open their containers and see a little bit more information on the student. So you have the student information here and the SELA, and then the student with disability status. And on the left hand, you'll notice that if there's an F or a W, and that's the indication of whether it's a fatal error or a warning. A fatal will prevent you from merging these two SSIDs. In fact, I don't even think the button to merge them appears yet. It's not there. You have to resolve that fatal conflict before you're allowed to merge these. Warnings will let you combine them still. So if I only had these two warnings and I didn't have these two fatal validations, I could merge these two SSIDs. Caveat being, I'm not a trainer. We do have, and so this is not meant to be a replacement for training at all. So Nate, one of our trainers, did a fabulous job putting together a real short video. If you'd like to hear a little bit more details on the background and the implementation of these changes, we do have it indicated on the homepage under the important messages. There's a link directly to the YouTube video. If you're on the CSIS YouTube channel and you searched on MID, it's the very first video that comes up. And like I said, it's not a long one, and more information there. So next up, we will be talking about the Fall 1 and Fall 2 roadmaps and checklists. This next few minutes is going to be really geared towards those of you who are new to CALPADS or new to the administrator role, LE administrator role, or those of you that have 8 other jobs and you're just kind of trying to reorient yourself back to fall and dig back in, and you've done, 8,000 other things since last time you did this. So it will be a review for some of you. I apologize for that. So you'll want to get familiar with the left-hand navigation, in particular under Help, the user manual. Lots of good info in here. But today we're going to be focusing on the roadmaps and the report mapping guide. So under Fall 1 roadmap, all kinds of information on this screen, including the deadlines that you have, a visual representation. One thing we like to point out here is the milestone to have your fatal certification errors resolved. And the reason we point that out is, and the reason it's a milestone, is because you really can't move on to the next step of reviewing your reports until all of your fatal certification errors are resolved. It's really important because those errors are telling you something's wrong with your data, your reports aren't accurate. So, before you start looking at your reports, it's very important that you get to that step of having 0 fatal certification errors. And luckily, you can start doing that ahead of time these days, right? Because we introduced this data discrepancy screen, and these run all year round. So, you have fatal errors. We may introduce more between now and October, but you can get a jump on a lot of these now so that you're not caught flat-footed when Information Day starts. Other thing on this report mapping guide is this left-hand table of contents is hyperlinked, and so you may not want to read through this entire section in one sitting. That's a lot to read, but maybe you're curious about what's new for Fall 1. I did this last year. I'm still fairly new, but okay, what do I need to know about what's new? And there's the changes that are here. but you can also use the back button to take you right back up to the table of contents. And, maybe I need to know what are my tools for success, and there's some areas right there. And then the other thing that this roadmap has that is really key is the Fall 1 submission checklist. And it's a downloadable Excel document. I have it open already on my desktop here. So the first tab has kind of what we saw on the roadmap, your milestones and deadlines. Second tab is the checklist itself, and has things you should be doing to prepare for Fall 1, who's going to be doing the data population, who's going to be reviewing the reports. This document is meant to be dynamic, meaning this is sort of a framework we threw together, but maybe there's things on here that don't apply to you, or maybe it's missing things that do apply to you and you want to add them. So feel free to download it, load it, enable editing, and save it on a shared drive where your team has access to it. And maybe one of the first things you do your next team meeting is you start filling out this responsibility. Who's going to be doing each of these tasks? And then every meeting you have after that, open it up and start checking things off. So just a good project management tool. If you don't already have something in place, this is a good one to start with. The last tab is the certification report quality checklist, and it has a couple things. It's all of the aggregate reports that you're going to find that you have to certify, and a description of those reports, and then tips of what to look for. So especially if you're brand new and you don't know what's important on that report, this is a good place to get yourself grounded and understand what I need to be looking for on this particular report. And then back to the user manual, we have the same thing for Fall 2. It's another roadmap, and it's kind of laid out the same way. It has this table of contents that you can use to toggle around. It's got the milestones. It's got a what's new section. I forget where it's on here, but it's not. Fall 2 hasn't been updated yet for this report roadmap. So stay tuned for what's new for Fall 2. But if you're brand new, things like what files do I need to submit, things like that are handy on this document. But it also does have a checklist. So it's got the milestones and the deadlines. It's got the checklist and who's responsible. It's column C here. It's the preparation, and then the filling out of the, uploading the data and reviewing the reports, all of the things to make you successful to meet the deadline. And then next up, we wanted to take a minute to look at the report mapping guides, again, back on the user manual. And if you forgot how I got here, under left-hand navigation, under help, user manual is how we found that. And then that's another one that's front and center, this report mapping guide. And we want to go to certification real-time reports. And right now we're going to be focusing on Fall 1 and Fall 2. These are pretty handy. We typically have these open all the time. And a lot of times before you need to submit a question to the service desk, this is probably a good place to check. If you're one of those people that would rather self-service and look something up yourself, this is where I would recommend starting. So each report has this place where you can drill down, and it has a description of what's on the report itself. But some key pieces of this are how the students or staff are selected for the report. Who are the students? What kind of enrollment statuses are we looking for? How old should they be? What grade levels can they be in? And then if you scroll down further, we actually have a picture of the report itself. Quick note, this one does not have the 2 new columns that Sean emphasized. We are working to get this updated as soon as we get the specs handed over to us. So coming very soon, this will have a couple new columns on it. So this is last year's version. So if you are looking at this, you want to note that the red header here is numbered on the mapping guide. And so if you are evaluating this report on your own and you're trying to figure out, okay, who are my total unduplicated FRPM EL eligible students? So let's do column 11. Who is EL funding eligible? What does that mean? So column 11, these are my English learners or adult English learners that happen to be having that status before Information Day, Census Day of this reporting year. So some of these reports can get pretty complicated. That was a pretty simple example, but a good place to review. And so that these are the aggregate reports, and on the right-hand side are the student detail reports, and it's the same concept for all of those. And then the same thing goes for fall 2, anything that's a certified aggregate report or a student detail or staff detail list report also has report mapping guides. And then the last thing I wanted to cover was getting help from us, just some best practices, especially if you're new. If you are not new, you've heard me say this before, and I'm sorry, but the best way to get a hold of us is through the service request form, and that's under help, service request, and it fills out some of this stuff for you already. Since we talked to you last, we have added a bit of a checklist to help help us get back to you faster. So when you are filling this out, if you could make sure you have all of the pertinent information you think we're going to need to help you. So not just say, I have an error, what is the error number? What were you doing? All the things. So we have this right on the form itself. So prior to hitting that submit button, maybe double check yourself and see, did I fill out everything that they're going to need? Otherwise, we have to go back and forth with you and takes up everybody's time. And so if we have everything we need to help you out and close out your ticket right away, we want to make sure that we are helping you as quickly as we can. And so that's something that helps us. And before I leave the screen, I wanted to briefly talk about the service request satisfaction survey that we sent out earlier in the year. And I just wanted to say thank you to those of you that took the time to fill it out, and especially those of you who put comments in there. Everybody on client services has read through all of those comments, and we're doing what we can to make sure that we are providing the best possible support that we can for you. We're always happy to help you. And so those comments were helpful in making sure that we are providing the services that you need to make your job successful at CALPADS. And then the next slide is what you've seen from us plenty of times, the resources and training that are available to you. Note on this slide, you'll notice that the Bridge link is gone. We are no longer using Bridge and getting signed up through trainings through the CSIS website. And again, how to reach us, the best way is through the service desk form, that web form up there. Shout out to the listservs, the CDE one, absolutely sign up for that. That is how you get informed when there's a new Flash update. The CSIS listserv is a two-way, and it's how you can talk to your colleagues and just kind of bounce off ideas off of each other. So that's a good place to sign up for as well, although that one's optional. And Matt, do I hand it off to you, back to you here?
Yes, you do. Thank you, Angela. I do want to acknowledge Clarissa's input for the differentiated assistance criteria. I agree that it would be as helpful as possible to get the additional criteria for data quality out as soon as we can. And we are trying to do so. So I want to just acknowledge that comment real quick before we move on to the wrap up. Your input is very much appreciated, Clarissa. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this session up here. So this slide contains all of the CALPADS regional update meetings scheduled for the 25-26 academic year. It should again be noted that we are transitioning registration for the upcoming regional meetings to the CSIS training registration page, which is linked to on the bottom of the slide there. Starting with the March regionals, registration for all of the CALPADS regionals will be handled through the CSIS training registration page rather than through the CDE regional page. It should be noted that the registration links were already provided for the entire academic year on the CDE regionals page in advance of the transition of the regionals to CSIS. So if you've already registered for the March and May regionals through the CDE webpage, we ask that you re-register on the CSIS training registration page as registration for the March and May regionals becomes available. And as a best practice, we recommend placing calendar holds on your personal calendars until you are able to submit your registration for these dates. These sessions always take place on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. There's always a morning and an afternoon session on both the Tuesday and the Wednesday. So the next regional update meetings will be March 3rd through the 4th, that Tuesday and Wednesday there. And we do look forward to seeing you at the next regionals in March. And this will be posted and communicated with the relevant links to the training registration page as we get closer to March. The focus of the March regionals will be the end of year data collections with the new end of year 1 and new end of year 2 collections. And with that, we would like to thank you for all of your hard work in CalPads, and thank you for your attendance in the session today. We do love to see you and appreciate all of the hard work that you guys put forward in the system there. Looks like we answered all their questions, Angela.
I did fail to mention, for those of you that downloaded the PowerPoint, all of the links I presented today are in the notes section of my slides.
Can you go over again why we need to clean up demographics in special education data from Pam? I believe that one's for disproportionality calculations, Pam. So the special education, the data that you submit in fall 1 is used for disproportionality calculations. Specifically, the data that's certified by the initial certification deadline. And so it's imperative to ensure that your demographic information is up to date, not only for your SPED students, for all of your students, but particularly for your SPED students for those disproportionality calculations. Sorry if I stole your talking point or did not do it justice, Dominic.
No, that was perfect. I don't even know why I turned my microphone on. Yeah, you nailed it. You just want to make sure that the race ethnicity information is accurate on the initial certification day, because we're pulling data for the determinations based on that data. And if that is incorrect, you could find yourself in disproportionality or significant disproportionality based on inaccurate data.
And just to add, this is Paula. I mean, I think what happened was historically we found that a lot of LEAs tend to update that race ethnicity data during the amendment window versus before the cert deadline, because it's not needed necessarily for UPC and so forth. So it's really changing your business processes to focus on that race ethnicity data before the first cert deadline and not during the amendment window.
Thank you, Paula and Dominic, and thank you, Pam, for the question. All right, and that brings us to the end of the questions. Thank you, everyone, for attending the September regional update meetings. It was very, very good to see everybody this morning, and look forward to seeing you at the next training, possibly the Q&A on Wednesday.